Meanwhile, a letter is sparking some serious debate right now. This open letter criticizes the Me Too movement and essentially defends a man's right to annoy women. This letter was signed by 100 women in France, including famed actress Catherine Deneuve. CNN senior international correspondent Jim Bitterman has more now from Paris.
Here is the article that caused all the stir. It appeared in yesterday's Le Monde newspaper, of course, as you know, a pretty highly regarded newspaper here, in which Catherine Deneuve, as well as 100 other very well-known actresses and philosophers and writers who are well-known on the scene here, women who all say that the Me Too movement has maybe gone too far. Just to give you a kind of an idea of what they had to say, here's a quote from it. "We defend the freedom to annoy, indispensable to sexual freedom. Today, we are sufficiently informed to admit that sexual drive is by nature aggressive and wild. But we also are sufficiently far-sighted not to confuse clumsy flirting and sexual assault." Now, of course, that kind of thing to the Me Too movement here, which is called Balance ton porc, which translates as denounce your pig, was something that caused a great deal of reaction on the streets here. And so the people who wrote the article with Catherine Deneuve were all over the media this morning talking about it and trying to defend it. Here's one of them, one of the co-editors.
There are women who will denounce men whose only wrongdoing was 1, 5, or 10 years ago to try to steal a kiss during a party or send a text message a little too gritty. By criminalizing this behavior, by putting it exactly on the same level as rape. Rape is a sexual crime. Heavy flirting is certainly not one.
The feminists in France who responded to the Deneuve article basically characterized those who signed it as being a bit out of touch and not aware of what goes on sometimes today and how aggressive sexually women are being treated. And if it's excessive, they said it is exactly right because it's the world we live in today. In France, hundreds of thousands of women are victims of harassment every single day.
Thanks to our Jim Bitterman for that report. I want to bring in Lauren Leader-Chevet. You've seen her before on our show. She's an author and the CEO of the All In Together campaign, which is committed to ensuring women's voices are fully represented. Amen to that, sister. Lauren, it's really good to have you back again. Let me, just because I want to get your outrage like fully inflamed, I want to read another portion of this letter that says the Me Too campaign has resulted in men being punished severely and losing their jobs. Here we go. Quote, while their only wrongdoing is to have touched a knee, tried to steal a kiss, talked about intimate things at a business dinner, or sending sexually explicit messages to a woman who was not attracted to them. I'm going to let you sound off because I think you'll do it more eloquently than I can.
Oh, thank you. I've been thinking all day about how to do that. So I have to say, I know the French culture very, very well. You might have discerned from my last name that I'm deeply connected to France. And I will tell you that there is a different sensibility around some of these things in France, and there's this sort of national identity around sexuality and sexual freedom, which has absolutely nothing to do with the issue at hand, which has nothing to do with flirting or with, sort of crossing a line in a subtle way. What the Me Too movement is about isn't about an abuse of power. And fundamentally, that is the issue that women are confronting. It is not an issue, I don't think anyone would say that somehow now we are no longer allowed to flirt. But when it's the instance of a senior man in a position of power and influence, whether that's a corporate executive or a media executive, who then inappropriately makes sexual advances on somebody who is a colleague or someone who's a subordinate, it's inappropriate. And it's inappropriate because the message it sends to women is that in order to be successful in X, Y, or Z environment, that they have to respond positively to the sexual advances of a male colleague in an environment where they should be talking about work. Yeah. And, obviously, when we're talking about, there are 1,000 shades of gray without question.
Sure.
And in fact, I spent all day today with corporate executives talking with them about the complexities of the shades of gray, because we don't want men in the workplace to be so fearful of backlash that they won't even have dinner with women colleagues anymore. That's a problem. But that is not what this is about, and we are nowhere near that moment.
So to that end, I actually had this very candid conversation with someone a male that I have a long friendship with, deeply respect, and I'm very close to. And I was sort of saying, this confounds me. I'm so confused. Yeah. He was saying that a lot of men are unsure now how to behave and are feeling sort of stymied. And I don't get that.
I know,
because
it's hard to get
for women. I said to him, to me, it's common sense. It's just about respect and dignity and mutual understanding that we all, you know, put our pants on one leg at a time. We all deserve to be here, and we all have equal value. Why is that? Why does that have anything to do with, you know, somebody getting pinned up against a wall or being flashed?
Well, I mean,
by,
look, I think, you know, part of what I'm trying to help organizations think about is that, look, there are some very bright red lines, and the law is pretty clear about it. The EEOC put out guidelines about this in 1993, and the fundamental issue is disparate power, right? That men in positions of power cannot proposition or in any way make women who are subordinate to them uncomfortable, nor can they do that with colleagues in an environment that implies that their jobs or their professional livelihood depends on their reciprocation. Yeah. And that is a very clear and bright red line. But I think the concern, because so much of this has exploded on social media, I am hearing that a lot of men in business, in lots of different corners, are worried that their reputations will be attacked if they are perceived to do something that's inappropriate. And I think, look, businesses I'm talking to are very clear about those lines. They're not prosecuting or firing people,
of course,
because they flirted at a party. But they are going to encourage people, especially when they're in positions of power and authority, to take that very seriously and to be treating their female colleagues with the respect that they deserve.
Oftentimes, I'm going to say two things. We have to wrap it up. I could talk to you for an hour on this topic, 2 days on this topic.
Let's do a whole show on it.
Let's do. I would love that. Messages often get lost in movements, and I think this is an opportunity for further definition and clarity to come to the forefront. And let's be honest, every time in society when there's a pendulum effect. We have to go all the way out, and there will be an extreme, and we settle somewhere in that juicy middle where the good stuff can happen, the hard stuff can happen. And I want to warn a guest that we're getting close to this juicy stuff in the middle. Lauren, I always love talking to you. Let's do it again.
Okay.
New this hour, President Trump taking a real hard line on his